So we want to do our bit to provide you with a platform to succeed. You, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the creators of the future. And so whether it's access to finance, whether it's access to the best research in our universities, whether it's the provision of the best kind of infrastructure, whether it's the investment in the skills and the education of the people that we represent and that you serve, that is something that you and us politicians need to do in partnership. And that is why I am so delighted to be with you here today to launch the Global Entrepreneurship Week here. This is a truly global and transnational event. Just this morning, a colleague of mine in the British government was at the headquarters of Google in London launching a similar parallel event in London. To be able to be here in the presence of both British and Dutch dragons is yet another expression of the unity of purpose that exists on either side of the Channel in the Netherlands and the United Kingdom. I'm particularly delighted to be here as someone who is the Deputy Prime Minister of the British government, but also half Dutch, met een Nederlandse moeder die heel trots zou zijn als ik hier nu in Rotterdam zou praten. Onze twee landen hebben een heel sterke band. Een belangrijke band. Historisch, cultuur te spreken, maar ook onze economies. Die zijn afhankelijk aan elkaar. En dus ik hoop dat wat jullie doen en wat jullie lukken in de toekomst is echt een model voor het diverse, dynamische economie die we nodig hebben in Groot-Brittannië, maar in Nederland ook. So all the best of luck. Veel succes. Bedankt.
Don't go yet. Don't go yet. I have the honor to ask you a few questions. One of the questions, as a good politician, you've already answered it. What's the role of government? Well, we heard you talk about that. So people have to do it on their own, basically.
Not quite. No, no. I don't think. No. It's certainly not a. It's not a sink or swim approach. But I think, given the failure of governments in recent years to properly regulate, in our case, in the United Kingdom, especially the banking system, given the failure of governments to identify where there were risks and pinch points and excessive over-leveraged business practices in our economy, clearly government has a massive duty, as I say, to provide the right regulatory context. But I think for the jobs of the future, for the innovation of the future, that is not something which government should ever seek to do directly. It's a relationship of partnership between innovators and creators, such as yourself, and politicians and governments.
The government will help?
Of course.
Okay. Another question. We have a Meet the Dragon session today. I remember first seeing it on BBC TV. It was sort of a revolutionary concept. Do you think it made a difference in the United Kingdom in stimulating people to start companies, to do entrepreneurialism, to write a business plan and present it?
Well, I think it made a huge difference. I mean, Rachel is the person to ask. She was involved in this in a way that clearly I was not. She was one of the
She'll talk
dragons,
about it later.
and she will indeed. My experience as someone who loves the show is that it's great television. It's always very important, but it strikes exactly the right balance, it seems to me, in terms of encouraging people to come forward, however wacky their idea might seem, but on the same time being quite testing and hard on them to justify what their ideas are. And I think that kind of balance of encouraging creativity but being quite demanding about what proposals are made in business and entrepreneurship is exactly the right mix of kind of hope and discipline, which I think is vital to any kind of entrepreneurial success.
Well, I'll see if we can live up to that standard today. Well, final question. You talked to Premier Rutte today. You guys created a government in 6 days. We took about 4 months here. Do you have any good advice for the Dutch to do this more quickly?
No, I wouldn't be so silly. I mean, look, we have very different, whilst there are huge similarities and affinities, and there's a great sort of common bond, I think, between the Netherlands and Great Britain. And if I can just say on that for a minute before I answer your question, All of us, of course, are looking to new economies, new markets. The Prime Minister of Great Britain was in a major trade mission in China yesterday, and we're reaching out to the new economies of the future, India, Brazil, China, and so on. I think it's worth remembering, however, that the old alliances, such as the old commercial relationship between the United Kingdom and the Netherlands, is unbelievably important, and we shouldn't simply take it for granted. I don't think many people in the United Kingdom know, for instance, that if they get onto trains in Merseyside or buses in London, or whether the paint they buy to paint their kitchen, or the kind of products they buy to put into their washing machine, or the way that some of their homes and their schools are being rebuilt, all of that is being done by Dutch or Anglo-Dutch companies that are extraordinarily important to the British economy, that employ thousands and thousands of people. So I feel very strongly, as Deputy Prime Minister of the new British government, that whilst we of course seek new opportunities around the world, we must never ever overlook very, very important commercial relationships such as the one which exists between the Netherlands and the United Kingdom. On the coalition, look, you guys are used to coalition in the Netherlands. People in the United Kingdom are not. They certainly weren't in May, and they're only a little bit more used to it now. So after sort of 3 days, after 3 days of a government, they were getting very, very impatient, and the newspapers were screaming that if we didn't have a government by the next day, there would be Armageddon and life would come to an end. So we were put under a huge amount of pressure. And also, on a more serious note, it's worth remembering that on the weekend after our general election, this was the height of the Greek fiscal crisis, and there was an emergency European summit where there was a real feeling that the markets were going to create very profound instability across the European Union, including in the United Kingdom, unless we were able to show quickly that there was a government which was prepared to govern together in a stable way in the long-term interests of the country. And that's what we're seeking to do.
I guess you're saying Holland could stay for 4 months without a government and nobody really noticed. Finally, I'm going to ask you to push this button. It won't launch anything. It will just launch this Global Week of Entrepreneurialism.
Right.
And while Mr. Clegg is doing that, thank you very much for your speech. There's going to be a video starting while Mr. Clegg is taking his leave.
Okay, well, can I just thank everybody again and wish you all the very, very best of luck. And with that,
push any button.
I will press this green button. Here we go.
I hope something will happen. There we go. Thank you very much. Appreciate you being here.